Missed the earlier chapters? Pause now and check the previous recap. Things are about to explode. Go watch them before this gets even crazier. Back in the Murim world, Hyuk and his squad run up the snowy mountain. Taekyung's unconscious body is carried by Hyuk. They run as fast as they can, all visibly tired. Hyuk is starting to lose his mind. The declaration of war and the head elder's betrayal are too much. Why did Taekyung faint now? Taekyung is still breathing, but feels near death. Hyuk's injury is getting worse. He regrets leaving the infirmary. He begins to turn pale. They must tell the main force about the betrayal, but Hyuk can't push further. Suddenly, a flash of light appears. It looks like Buddha reassuring the warrior. The Buddha figure is likely Hyuk's imagination, persuading him to give up. He almost gives in. Their leader collapsed, and his teammates aren't helping carry him. Hyuk stops running, ready to give up. But then, he feels a gust of warm air brush his ear. He turns to see Taekyung awake. Hey! Taekyung greets his subordinate. On the battlefield, blades clash, sparks fly, and blood spills. Screams echo. Warriors lose limbs and lives. High above, on a cliff, the higher-ups watch the war. Inside the head elder's mind, he enjoys the sight. His vision is coming to fruition. The 8th Valley of the Heavens is where his grand plan will be revealed. When the Great Faction War happened many years ago, this narrow valley saw countless martial warriors die in their pursuit to earn the title of legend. He then calls out to Taekyung and asks him about his thoughts on the current situation. The tide is in our favor, he says. But when he looks over to the battlefield, he adds, we are also suffering quite a bit of casualties on our side. The head elder then tells Taekyung, an important duty as the leader of an army is to know when he or she should join the fray or not. As the battle continues, the enemies will start to become more impatient, so you must make sure not to make any rash decisions. Taekyung then accepts the head elder's advice and tells him that he will have to hold back until the main force of the Mount Hang Sword sect arrives. However, he finds it unfortunate that they cannot make use of their position, so he cannot help but be angry at the heavens. The head elder agrees that Taekyung is someone who can lead the main family well. Not only does he possess an immense amount of martial arts, but he is also well received by the people, and he is a young man who already possesses critical decision-making skills. So, he finds it pitiful that Taekyung's potential will be lost when the plan is over. Back in the snowy forest, Taekyung finally greets his surprised teammates, and naturally, they ask him what happened. He has been unconscious for nearly a couple of hours, since 1 month in Murim was about 3 hours in real life, and he was in the real world for about 2 weeks. This confirms the computation of the time scaling. He then asks everyone, was I breathing at least? This confuses everyone and makes them ask why he is asking these questions. All of a sudden, he then demanded answers, which told him that he was breathing, and that if he wasn't, he would have been dead by now. This means that if Taekyung enters one world, his body in the other world pretty much faints. If he hadn't taken care of those assassins earlier, then it's possible that he wouldn't even have a body to return to. He then asks about the main force's current situation, to which everyone answers that they are just making their way to them, and that it will take a few more hours. Hyuk then hesitates to tell his leader that they might have to prepare for the worst. Taekyung is confused by what Hyuk just said. If everything goes as Kwokjun mentioned, this betrayal was planned for a long time. However, this plan has one crucial flaw: Taekyung's existence and the fact that he survived. Not only that, Kwokjun said something else during his interrogation. They wasted a little time questioning him, but it is not too late. So, there's no need to prepare for the worst. Placing his fist on his chest, Taekyung declares that he will do whatever he can to make sure that doesn't happen. This warms the unit's cold bodies as Taekyung gives a gentle smile, which makes hope shine in Hyuk's eyes. That hope quickly disappears when Taekyung commands everyone to get ready to leave. Taekyung asks everyone if he stuttered and stands firm with what he said. And so, everyone started to run back onto the battlefield. The warriors of the main force are leading a massacre against the warriors of the Mount Hang Sword sect. Mercenaries from the Reign of Blood clan attempted to retreat, but they were cut off by someone. Their commander was swiftly decapitated by the same person. The person in question is none other than the Mount Hang Sword sect head, Kyan Beck. He threatens the rest of the Reign of Blood clan to head back into battle. He tells them that their refusal will lead them to experience the true meaning of their clan name. He points his sword at the cowards, and they begin to run back onto the battlefield. He is annoyed by the incompetence of the mercenaries that he hired for this war. He then begins to regret his own faults. He says that he was too impatient because he was blinded by his desire for revenge due to the death of his son. He ignored the words of his advisors and took the quickest route to get to where they were. He finds it embarrassing that he, of all people, would willingly walk into this narrow valley. Out of nowhere, a dark miasma begins to form and wrap Kain Bek's blade as he takes a deep step forward. He begins to lead the vanguard into battle with a large number of warriors to kill the members of the Jin family. The head elder of the Jin family looks down again at the battlefield, but this time, something catches his interest. There are some new faces that have been rapidly taking down their numbers, and the head of the opposing team finally appears in the fight. Weekyung says, "The time has finally come." The head elder agrees, saying, "It would have been better if a certain man showed up a bit later." He continues, "But it doesn't matter in the end, since a certain group will most likely step in." He then tells Weekyung, "I will take care of Kain Bek." Weekyung permits this. The Bloodhound, Lee Kain Bek, is a transcendent martial master who single-handedly led the Mount Hang Sword sect to the top. Weekyung finds the current circumstances unfortunate because he has always wanted to talk with him. He calls for Weepong, saying, "We will take care of the rest." Weepong obliges and hands his master his sword. The sword he is holding is his father's sword, which he left behind when he was sent off to travel the mainland. Weekyung doesn't even know where the person who is supposed to be their family head currently is, and his second brother should have received news regarding their situation right now. Weekyung determines himself as the protector of the Jin family of Taiyuan, and he will have to emerge victorious. He unsheathes his sword and raises it in front of his army, telling them, "Do not leave a single one of them alive." Back on the battlefield, Kain Bek swiftly beheads and takes out a large number of warriors from the Jin family. He notices someone standing across from him on the other side of the battlefield, Weekyung. He is someone who enrages Kain Bek, and he will make sure to kill him with his own bare hands. Red Sword Chi begins to gather around the blade of Kain Bek's sword, but before he is able to finish it, a familiar face shows up behind him. It was the head elder, and Kain Bek didn't notice his presence nearing him. The head elder launches a piercing attack that nearly hits Kain Bek, but he dodges it and counterattacks him. The counter, however, lands on an afterimage, and the environment around them becomes a field donning the purest white fog. Kain Bek recognizes this technique as the Blade of Illusion, which makes the head elder nostalgic, for he hasn't heard of that name in a long time. The head elder then greets Kain Bek by his title, the Bloodhound. Kain Bek never expected the head elder to appear behind him without any presence. Even if he was focused on Weekyung, he considered the head elder a martial master with full certainty. "It isn't a bad idea to become the strongest in all of Shanshur first," Kain Bek said. "That might be a bit impossible for you," the head elder replied. "We will never know until we try," Kain Bek rebutted. "That way of thinking is what the weak always say," the head elder countered. He continued, "The weak fail to realize that nothing will change the inevitable outcome." Sharp words. Kain Bek praised as his chi wrapped around his sword. The head elder wondered, "Are your words the only thing that is sharp?" He then wrapped his sword with chi as well. With both their swords embedded with their chi, the blades began to glow red. "Make the first move," the head elder allowed. Kain Bek gladly took up the offer and lunged at the head elder. Their blades clashed. Every time Kain Bek slashed, the head elder would either evade or only hit an afterimage. Then, the head elder went from evasive to offensive tactics. He sent a flurry of slashes at Kain Bek, forcing him into a defensive position. The speed of the head elder's attacks was so fast that Kain Bek could barely keep his defenses up. Suddenly, the head elder went even faster and pushed Kain Bek back into a corner. Their attacks and defenses were so powerful that the warriors of both sides were getting caught in their fight. They all agreed to get away from them. Out of nowhere, an attack that moved like a snake landed a cut on Kain Bek's forearm. This gave him a disadvantage, since the injured arm was his dominant hand, forcing him to use the other. Before he could do anything, the head elder lunged toward the injured warrior and initiated an attack. Kain Bek raised his blade to defend himself, but the attack was so strong that it managed to twist and break his arm. This gave the head elder the chance to finish the fight. He took the opportunity and began to send a bunch of slices that cut Kain Bek all over his body. So injured from the attack, he began to spit out and bleed a ton of blood. A group of people fighting stopped and looked. They were all extremely stunned and couldn't believe their eyes. They even stopped fighting, not continuing after a moment of silence. A voice of discussion rang out. The Hang Sun sword master lost. The people from the Lu family said in confusion, Master, master. The people from the Jin family shouted with joy. Elder Kyan Beck, his whole body trembling, knelt down on the ground, spitting out blood from his mouth. Seeing that the situation was not very good, Kyan Beck said with a trembling voice, What do you want? Say it. But the great elder did not react at all. He was waiting for something else. Seeing that there was no answer, Kyan Beck hugged his painful chest, his voice unable to hide the fear. He said, I will give you this life. I will order my subordinates and disband the sect for 10 years, or even 100 years, so the Mountain Sword Gate. Before he could finish speaking, the great elder interrupted and said, No. The great elder coldly glanced at Kyan Beck, who was kneeling on the ground. He said, The only thing I want is for every Mountain Sword Gate to be destroyed, not even a blade of grass left behind. Hearing that, Kyan Beck screamed in pain. Why? The great elder still coldly replied, If you guys are the ones who won this battle, you would do the same to us. His eyes were bloodshot, his face still covered in red blood. He screamed at the great elder, Wasn't the one who did it first your hen family? Thinking of his son, he said painfully, My poor son, you killed him. The great elder raised his head to look, then stroked his beard. He said, Lee Seo-gun, that's right, it was because of that boy. Suddenly, the great elder's voice became cold and even low. He said, When you go down to meet the king of hell, ask him who killed Lee Seo-gun. Kyan Beck's eyes turned red when he heard the great elder's words. Who was the one who killed Lee Seo-gun? What do you mean? Kyan Beck screamed in pain. At this moment, the great elder swung his sword. He thought to himself, I will end this war with this. His face became distorted and extremely scary. He was extremely happy, thinking it will be time for a new war to break out. Kyan Beck closed his eyes tightly, waiting for the sword to stab down on him. But the sword was broken and fell to the ground. Next to it was a stick that flew into the corner of the wall. That bastard! A familiar voice rang out. The great elder frowned and turned to look at the person who was screaming at himself. Above, on a cliff, Jin Taekyung's silhouette appeared in his sight. He was still in the position of throwing the stick this far. Jin Taekyung looked at the great elder, then took a breath and shouted, It's me, you damn old man. The great elder looked at him in shock and thought, Jin Taekyung? How did you survive? Jin Taekyung took a deep breath. Elder, he shouted, You are a traitor. The crowd stopped fighting and turned to look at him. The great elder frowned, not expecting him to know. The snow whistled in the sky above. The quiet space made the wind whistle even more fiercely. Below, someone observing him said in wonder, That person looks too much like the third young master. Another person, understanding the first, asked, Is the elder a traitor? The three injured people looked at Jin Taekyung strangely. What the hell are you talking about? One asked. What is this? Is there an internal conflict? Are you drunk? Is the third young master falling back into old ways? Standing on one side, observing the battle, the fat man heard the conversation and spoke sarcastically. That crazy guy. The bearded man angrily said, Do you know who that is? At that time, Weepong had just finished killing a member of the Lee family. He turned around in surprise. It seems he has gone mad, he said. In another corner, drops of blood fell from Jin Weekyung's sword, drop by drop, onto the ground. Jin Weekyung doubted in his heart. Is the elder a traitor? He wondered. Jin Weekyung had killed the elder and Lee Seo-jung's advisor. He turned back to observe Jin Taekyung's side. Even though the youngest brother still didn't understand life, he couldn't die from the rear waiting all the way to tell these jokes. He seemed to be thinking about Jin Taekyung's words just now. He silently thought back. This war was strange from the beginning. Jin Weekyung thought back to the events that had happened recently. First, Lee Seo-gung was killed, starting with Lee Seo-gung, who was still recovering and died from poisoning. Then the rumor spread quickly. Although we know that the elder's success today is thanks to that good cooperative attitude. Jin Weekyung felt like he was standing still as he pieced together these stories. He remembered the great elder's face and silently lamented in his heart. But did it turn out like this because the elder wanted it that way? Then he coldly called, Weepong. Weepong wiped a few drops of blood on his shirt and replied, Give your orders. Jin Weekyung calmly spat out a sentence. Behead the great elder for me. Weepong was silent. The crowd behind him said in shock, What? Are you serious? The head of the family, Jin Weekyung, looked at his loyal subordinate with a serious face and said with a very determined voice, Try your best. Hearing that, Wee Peng turned around and nodded. At the same time, as if responding, a bald, old man shouted, "Family head, are you crazy?" Seeing that his master was threatened, Wee Peng rushed toward him with his sword. The bald, old man backed away in fear. Bang! 3 swords collided with each other. The 2 people next to him moved to block Wee Peng's sword from rushing in. The 3 swords all emitted a terrifying, murderous aura as they faced each other. Wee Peng said coldly and with disdain, "It turned out that he deliberately hid his martial arts skills." The bald, old man snorted sarcastically. Hoppy raised his hand and launched a shot at Wee Peng. A gust of wind shot Wee Peng far away. The crowd looked bewilderedly at the scene unfolding. The bearded man panicked and said, "Great Elder, what exactly is this?" The man pointed forward and said, "No way, it can't be." The bald man waved his sword and said, "It's still a bit early, but it can't be helped." Jin Taekyung quickly ordered Wee Peng to stop him. Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out, followed by fireworks shooting straight into the sky. On the other side, after seeing that, the people of the Jin family who were resting and drinking water said in surprise, "What is that?" At that moment, a sword pierced straight through the chest of the person holding the water bottle. That person died immediately, and the other person did not expect his comrade to kill like that. "What's wrong with you?" The other guy took off the blue shirt he was wearing. He also threw away the hair tie. He said, "You have no place to hide. You will die from that wound." A bunch of people wearing Blue Clan clothes tore off their shirts and instead became another army. The Palace Demon Gate, the 3-Path Gate, and even the Blue Path Gate. Jin Taekyung watched as people die in front of him. He was thinking, this is it. This is not something that can be prepared overnight. The 3 sects continuously killed people of the Jin family. Jin Taekyung thought to himself, if everything goes according to plan, the incident will occur after the destruction of the Hang Sandsword sect. The scene changed to the Great Elder's side. He said in a low voice, everything was going according to plan. Suddenly, a trembling voice rang out. It turned out, it was you. Beck said, "I swear I will tear your bones and flesh until you die." The Great Elder slowly bent down and replied, still having the strength to speak. Beck was so angry that his face turned red, and he said, "If I can't do it alive, then even if I die, I will kill you." But before he could finish speaking, several hidden weapons were shot straight at him. He opened his eyes wide and collapsed to the ground. The Great Elder looked at him coldly and then said in a pathetic voice, "You have other things to do." He bent down and did something with Beck's body. A shrill scream rang out from behind. "Old bastard, don't touch him with your dirty hands." When the Great Elder heard that, he coldly glared at the voice. Jin Taekyung shouted as he ran quickly through there. Hyuk and the people behind couldn't run in time and shouted, "Captain, can you run a little slower?" But his feet did not stop, and he continued to run towards the Great Elder. As he ran, he furrowed his eyebrows and thought, "Damn, it's so far away that I can't see exactly." Looking at the chaotic scene before his eyes, people pushing and pushing back and forth, he couldn't see clearly what the Great Elder was doing. Jin Taekyung's head was sweating. He gritted his teeth and thought, he's already been defeated. Is that old man that strong? Looking at his fellow students lying on the ground, he worriedly thought about how he could save them. As soon as he finished thinking, he ran quickly across the ground and conveniently grabbed the spear stuck in the ground. Jin Taekyung took a deep breath, then raised the spear. He thought to himself, I don't know, but I have continuously grown in reality and in Murim. It probably won't be easy, but I'm not going to lose that easily. Out of his mouth, he screamed, Elder, take your hands off. Seeing Jin Taekyung release the spear without any regrets, he shouted, How dare you hurt my senior brother, bastard? At this moment, the spear was rushing towards the Great Elder. He did not move, but glanced at the spear rushing towards him. Then the Great Elder slowly raised his sword, and a strong, murderous aura emitted from the sword's body. Then suddenly he turned around and used his sword to split the spear that was coming towards him. Jin Taekyung saw that one of his moves had broken the spear and wanted to hold his breath, not even daring to breathe. The three people on Hyuk's side also stopped. All three faces were pale, as if there was no blood left at all. Jin Taekyung was running as fast as he could when he suddenly braked, causing the ground below to sink into a long hole. Looking at the red light radiating from the Great Elder's sword, Jin Taekyung thought to himself, this is it. In fact, mana crystals can be extracted when you become at least a level of hunter. The only difference is in name between mana and power. In terms of chi, they are the same. On the other side, the Great Elder turned around and was about to walk towards Jin Taekyung. The four people on his side kept moving forward, their bodies trembling slightly. The three people and Hyuk panicked and whispered to Jin Taekyung, "Captain, are you sure he betrayed the leader? Otherwise, we can resolve it by negotiation." He stood in front, sweating, thinking, "Damn, it's too much for me." He clenched his teeth. His face looked serious. He silently speculated in his heart, should I run away? No way. If that was the case, then I wouldn't have come back here. I've gone too far, and there's only one road left. After thinking for a while, Jin Taekyung bent down and picked up the spear lying on the ground. "You guys stand here and wait for orders." Hyuk heard that and asked in confusion and panic, "You intend to fight alone? Why are you crazy? Let's go together." Hyuk wondered and said, "Don't you need to have meat shields like us to have a chance of winning?" Jin Taekyung turned back and replied, "What?" He raised his eyebrows at the other three people and then smiled. "I'm not planning to die. I'll go take a look and then come back, so just wait." Jin Taekyung alone held the spear and walked towards the Great Elder. Behind him was still Kyan Baek, kneeling face down and fainting on the ground. On the other side, Jin Taekyung took a deep breath. "If I can make the most of the length of the spear to maintain distance and fight, then I can beat him. Let's try it." The Great Elder was silent and wanted to say something, but in the end, he still didn't say a word. He also took a few steps forward. Even as Jin Taekyung's footsteps did not stop at all. Angry, Jin Taekyung swung his spear towards the Great Elder. Suddenly, the system jumped out and ding-ding for a few times. The winner's title and effects were applied. Strength was temporarily increased, agility was temporarily increased, and physical strength was temporarily increased. The Great Elder did not move, but his hand raised his sword to block the spear. His face was extremely cold. The Great Elder's eyes were somewhat appreciative, but most of all, they were contemptuous of him. He opened his mouth and said, "That's pretty good. It can go this far." Jin Taekyung raised his eyebrows to notice his words, and at the same time, a light sound rang out. The Great Elder's sword touched the blade of the spear, causing it to break very easily without any effort at all. The Great Elder coldly swung his sword at him without mercy. He quickly rushed out of that circle and jumped to the side. In his hand was a spear that had been cut into 3 equal lines by the sword. His face shone with surprise. That could be quick as lightning. He threw 2 sticks towards the Great Elder without waiting for him to react. Jin Taekyung changed his direction to another side, making him extremely confused. He turned his head and glanced at him. "Are you planning to escape at this time?" Jin Taekyung ran to where Kyan Baek was lying in a pool of blood. He laughed and said, "Running away? How ridiculous." Seeing that he was being played, the Great Elder waved his sword angrily. "You bastard." The airflow he threw out just happened to hit the spot where Kyan Baek was lying. At the same time, the figure of Jin Taekyung, hugging Kyan Baek, rushed away after retreating. 2 groups of people quickly rushed out with weapons, protecting the captain, protecting the 3rd young master, gathering everyone around him. Hyuk was among the crowded people. He stuck his head out and asked, "Is the captain okay?" Jin Taekyung didn't pay attention to his question, but he was staring blankly at the dying person. In his mind, he was extremely confused, thinking, "Who is this person?" He shyly looked at Kyan Baek and said, "Sorry, but who is this?" At this time, Hyuk managed to squeeze out. Looking at Kyan Baek, he was extremely shocked. Hyuk pointed the sword at him and shouted in surprise, "Lee Kyan Baek." Of course, he knew that blood sword Lee Kyan Baek. Jin Taekyung still asked blankly, "Do you know this person?" Hyuk said, "Of course I do. He is the Bloodhound, Lee Kyan Baek." Bloodhound. After hearing this name, he threw Lee Kyan Baek back on the ground and stuck his body against the wall. Hyuk said, "The head of the hang-sacked family. That's the Bloodhound, Kyan Baek." Looking at the person covered in blood all over his body, it was difficult to even breathe. Jin Taekyung was afraid, hugged his body, and gritted his teeth, thinking, "He was the one who started the war in order to kill me. Not only did I save the wrong person, but I could have almost been killed by him." Jin Taekyung took a deep breath and thought to himself, but luckily it wasn't Jin Weekyung. On the other side, Hyuk was observing the situation and reporting back. "So, where's family head?" Taekyung said, "I don't know." But before he could finish his sentence, he noticed that the Great Elder on the other side had killed all his people. Jin Taekyung said seriously, "That is not the current problem. After killing all those people, his feet were still stepping on the body of one person. Now his whole body was emitting an amazing murderous aura." His voice was low. He looked at Jin Taekyung with sharp eyes and said, "He is a disrespectful person." The scene changes to this side, where Wee Peng is holding a sword and rushing forward. The person blocking the attack was the fat man with white hair. A fat guy appeared on the back, wanting to sneak attack him. A sharp swishing sound swung up and cut through the ends of Wee Peng's hair. His hair were cut off, making him frown and glance at him. After seeing his subordinates being secretly attacked, Jin Taekyung was on fire and was about to rush up and say, "You bastards." A skinny, bald old man pointing his sword at Jin Taekyung and saying, "Where are you going in such a hurry?" Jin Taekyung frowned. His blue mana sword pointed straight at that old man. That bald man also swung his sword to fight back. Suddenly, a powerful explosion rang out. The two swords collided. Jin Taekyung retreated backward. Even a bald old man was pushed back a distance. The two stood at opposite ends, staring at each other. The surrounding air became stagnant. Jin Taekyung let out a breath and thought, "How does the old man have this much strength?" The bald old man raised his slightly red hand and thought, "I didn't expect the family head to be this strong." Suddenly, a cut appeared on Jin Taekyung's arm, causing blood to spurt out. A small cut wound also appeared on his face, and he cried out. Jin Taekyung slowly raised his sword. He silently lamented, "I used too much energy fighting against the fierce mountain swords." Looking at the bald old man fiercely rushing towards him, Jin Taekyung prepared to raise his sword to block the attack. He thought, "This seems difficult." Suddenly, another sword rushed between the two people. The bald man glanced at that person coldly. He swung his sword towards that sword. On the other side, the sword was broken. The other person's blood also flowed out like a waterfall. Jin Taekyung was extremely shocked when he saw that person. The injured person trembled and hugged the wound on his stomach. The bald man pulled out his bloody sword and coldly spoke. "Law advisor, you are really troublesome. You really want to die?" The so-called advisor was holding out his broken sword and trembling as he said, "You great elders betrayed the family." The great elder said, "Oh, then what?" The advisor said, "You are a warrior master of the Jin family." The strategist spat out a large mouthful of blood. He still steadfastly pointed his sword at the great elder and said, "I order you to stop." His voice was trembling. Suddenly, a loud and shocking scream rang out. Then, a series of people called out to the law advisor. The great elder looked at the group of dirty-clothed people whispering and talking. He thought, "So, these are the leaders, elite warriors and bodyguards? That's so disappointing." They turned to see the fat man and the bearded man already in battle, inexplicably shouting, "What the hell is this?" The bushy bearded man was extremely shocked when he looked at the two dead bodies of his fellow disciples and thought, "So, have you guys really been lying to us all this time?" Next to him was another person. He gritted his teeth and thought, "Thinking that I didn't know anything and still helped them before, how shameful." Next to him was a man with long brown hair who thought, "I don't know when they plan to destroy the whole family." A second later, all these people holding swords, knives, and spears shouted, "Kill all those traitors." The three members of the elder team stepped back to observe. The great elder looked at the group rushing toward him, their ignorance plain on their faces. He smirked. "It's truly indescribable stupidity," he muttered. Jin Taekyung stood still, watching the approaching group. He could hear their shouts. "This day will be your day of death." Even Wee Peng couldn't get a word in. The people confidently yelled, "Damn it! Show them the power of the Jin family." A second later, Jin Taekyung turned and faced the other group. He raised his voice loudly. "Listen to me," he shouted. "The Mount Sword-Hung sect is the enemy of the Jin family of Taiyuan." He sternly addressed the crowd. All of this was meticulously planned and carried out by the elders. We must use all our strength to repel them together. To become a martial arts master, you need to practice your sword and arm muscles fully. You must undergo harsh training to prove your strength. Then, it is necessary to train others to improve and not rely on tricks like assassination. One must always uphold one's honor, so as not to have any bad reputation or dirt. What is it because we have lived too long? A handful of soil flew forward. The elder panicked and turned away, trying to avoid the dirt hitting his face. On the other side, Jin Taekyung commanded the group, continuously roll dirt and mud into handfuls and throw it at the elder without stopping. He continued to dodge the mud as quickly as he could. Looking at this scene, the elder thought to himself, throwing mud? I've lived for 80 years, and this is the first time I've witnessed a battle like this. The group bent down, some dug, some grabbed, some passed. The elder silently groaned in his heart. Even the weaker factions we had fought before never stooped this low. Still, the crowd kept chanting, "Don't stop." Jin Taekyung's subordinates were throwing dirt at the elder while he struggled to avoid bullets made of mud. Jin Taekyung kept commanding, "Don't stop." The elder thought angrily, "You told me they were martial artists." In the elder's head, at this moment, two words echoed, "How pathetic." He was extremely angry, his eyes red with fury. Hyuk, who had just been throwing insults, angrily stomped his feet and spoke up. "What the hell are you doing at this time?" The elder heard that and thought with a sigh of relief. Wait, it seems like there's still one guy left with some sense in him. But a second later, Hyuk picked up a huge rock and held it up. He said very firmly, "Do you think mud is enough? We have to mix some rocks in as well." Hearing this, the elder was speechless. He hadn't paid attention to where the mud bullets were coming from. The elder was hit squarely in the face. Jin Taekyung looked over, surprised. Hyuk was also stunned and looked at the elder. The mud fell from the elder's face, but he didn't move. A stone in the mud also fell to the ground. Suddenly, the elder gasped for a few seconds. Now, the elder was really angry. He coated his sword with mana and then laughed hysterically. The elder was so angry that his eyes turned red. His face could not hide his murderous intent. He spoke coldly, his voice laced with threats. "I hope you are mentally prepared for this." On the other side, when the people heard that, they were sweating in fear. Jin Taekyung looked dejectedly at Hyuk and said, "You shouldn't have thrown the rock at him." Hyuk stammered, "But I'm not the only one who did that." Well, that's all for today. If you like this video, then don't forget to share and subscribe Sun Manhwa.